I'm going to do a video today about vibrato. And I want to start by saying I'm not a content creator. I don't create content. My channel is not monetized. I make zero money off of any video I make. I've found vibrato to be a very important aspect to my sound over the years, and I'm wanting to share this technique with you. And what I'm asking from you is, I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. I'm asking you to go and push subscribe. Right now it's free, takes literally almost zero effort, and it helps videos like this just get out. It's not so I can get paid. It's just so videos like this can get out to more people because of the YouTube algorithm. Thank you. Now, vibrato, first off, I'm going to tell you, I can improve your sound 20 to 30%. Right now, I can help you improve your sound 20 to 30% right now. And it involves you doing nothing. It involves you not learning any new technique, not doing any picking exercises, not doing any finger exercises, nothing. Okay? Your sound can improve 20 to 30% if you listen to what I'm about to say. Okay? And here it is. Stop using vibrato on every note. Stop using vibrato on every note. When you stop on a note, don't just automatically go into the habit of putting vibrato on it. Example. Every time you stop, you put vibrato on your note, quit doing that. I was watching a Joe Satriani clinic, and Joe Satriani said, about 8 years ago, I had to relearn how to play guitar because I was putting vibrato on every note. And I had to go back and relearn how to play guitar without it. And at that point, I just played some licks, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing that. I'm doing that. And so I made an effort to quit putting vibrato on every note, and it improved my sound at least 20%. Because the thing is, the note is the most important part of the technique. Fretting the note and playing the note with whatever technique you have. And when you're using vibrato, you're going back and forth over the note. You're not actually playing the note. So vibrato has less of an impact than an actual note. Vibrato is like, cake decoration on icing. It's not the icing on the cake. It's the little decorations on the icing on the cake. Little flowers or a little accent here and there. It's not meant to be used every time you play a note. So you want to improve your sound 20%, 30%. Don't use vibrato on every note. Don't use it on every note that you stop on. Don't let it be a habit to use vibrato on every note. Now, I'm going to show you, there's two main vibrato techniques. To me, in terms of order of vibrato kings, BB King, number one. BB King's vibrato is unrivaled, in my opinion. It's the best. Then you've got Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then Eric Clapton. Now there's a whole bunch of guys that use great vibrato, and there's too many to list. So I'm just going the top three. B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton uses a different technique, which I'm going to show you. But the B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan technique, Albert King, Freddie King, a lot of Kings, these guys all use the same technique of vibrato, okay? So now let me explain to you what the vibrato actually is, okay? Here's a note. This is your note, okay? Now vibrato moves that note. You're moving that note. That's what vibrato is. Now, one of the most important parts of this technique is you want to move evenly over the note, back and forth. You see a lot of guys, what they do is they pull the note out of tune by going like this. Hear how it's out of tune? This is in tune. So when you're going with your vibrato, it's super important to get it evenly, or as close to evenly as you can get, over the whole note, like this. This is what you don't want. You don't want to pull the note in one direction and move like this. You don't want to pull the note in one direction and move like this. You want to go evenly over the note. Okay? That's very important. And it also goes back to what I was talking about. It's the most important thing is to play the note. Because when you're doing vibrato over it, you're just implying the note. By leaving it even like this, you're implying the note that you're playing. When you start pulling it in one direction, you're implying a different note. So you have to get it even just to imply that note. Now, if you play that note without vibrato, that's the strongest you can get. When you put a vibrato over it that's very even, that's pretty good. Now, the technique itself, it varies a little bit, but this is the basic idea. You have your hand on the guitar, okay? Just put your hand out like this, like you're holding the guitar, and pull your wrist down. Move your hand like this. Pull your wrist down and push it up. All your vibrato comes from your wrist. It does not come from your fingers. So there are actually some people who will do a vibrato like this. They'll use their finger. Don't use your finger for vibrato. Don't use this don't pull with your fingers. Your finger stays stable and your wrist moves your finger. So your wrist moves your finger. The vibrato is not in the fingers, it's in the wrist. Like this. That's how you do vibrato right there. That's exactly how you do it. You just move your wrist back and forth and you anchor your hand on the guitar. So, when you're doing vibrato, you use the classic kind of blues hand position right here with your neck, with your thumb over the neck. You're not using it's almost impossible to do vibrato like this. So you have to use this kind of position here. Now what you do is, I'm in the key of A right now. I'm going to do in A. So you hit the note, and then you move your wrist to go back and forth over the top of it. Now the most important part about this is you're anchoring your hand right here on your knuckle. This is the pivot point. You don't leave your hand. Eric Clapton leaves his hand out in space, which I'll show you. But the B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan technique is to have your knuckle up against the guitar that acts as a pivot point. That's very important. You're not just out here going like this. You have to have your knuckle on the guitar. You have your knuckle anchored right here on the neck when you're doing the vibrato. Even when I'm doing this finger, my knuckle is still pushed up against the guitar. That's very important. When you're doing vibrato, you want to have your knuckle up against the guitar, and you want to be pulling with your wrist and pushing with your wrist. That's how you do it. That's the technique. That's the Stevie Ray Vaughan, that's the B.B. King technique. And then as you develop it, you can go a little faster with it. That's the technique. Now, when you're up on the higher string, the high E string, okay, you literally can't go back and forth like this. Because of the position of the guitar, you can't come down with it like this. So when you're putting vibrato, once again in the key of A here, if you're putting vibrato on a note, the vibrato is not going to be quite as wide. You have to make it real tight, because you're going to pull your string off the fretboard. And as I said, you don't want to push it up like this and be out of tune. You just want a little bit of motion there, so it's right on the edge. See how it just went over? Right on the edge of going over. That's feel. That takes a little time to get the feel of it, but that's what you want to do on the high E string. Now, when you're using your third finger, you use the same technique. You're just going to anchor your hand once again on your knuckle and just pull with your third finger. Which brings me to bends. Bends at the end of vibrato. Remember how I told you vibrato is going back and forth between the note? On a bend, you can't do that, because you're bending up to a note. This is the note, right? And I'm bending up to it. And now the vibrato, you don't want the vibrato to go over the note. You want to have the vibrato go back and up to the note. So the highest point of the vibrato, when you're putting vibrato on a bend, is the bend itself. So you bend up to the note, right? And then you put vibrato on it by coming to the note, coming back, and then to the note, and then back, and then to the note. Try not to go over the note when you're doing it. You can go over the note, but it's much more impactful to the ear when you just bring it to the note and then push against the note, always ending up at the note. I'll show you right here. Let's say, for instance, I'm bending up to that note, right? So when I put vibrato on it, I go like this. See how I'm just bending up to the note and not really going over it? Like, let me give you an example. This is going over it. Listen. Hear how it goes higher? You can do that. But if you want to kind of imply the note, you just go underneath it and then back up to it repeatedly, like this. See, I'm ending up at the note every time because that's the note that I want people to understand that I'm playing. So that's real important when you're using vibrato on a bend. You want to. See how the note really pops out? Because I'm not going over it. Here, I'll go over it for you. You can hear. That's the note. And once again, I'm anchoring my hand, and I'm just pushing it with my wrist. See my wrist? My wrist is moving right here. So that's how you use vibrato on a plain note. On a note that's on the high E. And then on a bend. That's the Stevie Ray Vaughan technique. That's the B.B. King technique. Okay? Now, I'll show you one little trick that Stevie does. He calls it a stinger. He calls this note a stinger. And you basically hit the note with a fair amount of force, and you just immediately just lay into it with some vibrato. Just with a fast vibrato. You immediately lay into the note with a fast vibrato. So it'd be like, it's not like, let me demonstrate just a normal. Right? The stinger is. You just immediately lay into it. This is normal. This is the stinger. Just lay right into it and go fast on it. That's a Stevie Ray Vaughan technique he calls a stinger. Now I'm going to show you the Eric Clapton vibrato. The Eric Clapton vibrato is a little bit different than the SRV and B.B. King vibrato. Eric, he's got great vibrato too. He drops his hand down like this. And then he vibrates the note like this. Kind of using his finger as the pivot point. Like I said, with Stevie and B.B. King, they use their knuckle as the pivot point, right? You have your hand up against the guitar like this, and you're pivoting off of that knuckle. See my knuckle? I'm pivoting off the knuckle there, right? Eric drops his hand down like this, and then he shakes. The B.B. King technique, we're going like this, right? The Eric Clapton technique is going like this. It's like he's pulling it down and back like this. This is how he does it. He doesn't do a sideways motion like B.B. King or Stevie Ray Vaughan. He does like this downward motion and backward like this. This is the Eric Clapton motion. This is the Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King motion. This is the Eric Clapton motion. And to do that, he has to drop his hand down. So, this is an E, but. So if you're playing normally like this, right? And when you hit the Eric Clapton vibrato, you drop your hand down a little bit, and then you use your finger as the actual pivot, and you put your energy from the wrist into the finger with the finger as the pivot. You're still pulling the wrist. It's still coming from your wrist. It's a great vibrato. I love the sound of it. So the difference being that when you're playing an Eric Clapton type of riff in E, you have to drop your hand down like this. You can't, he moves his hand out of position to actually get the vibrato. That's the Eric Clapton vibrato. You drop your hand down and you pull, you're still pulling with your wrist. Your finger is still staying still. You want your finger not to move. You don't want your finger moving on either one of these techniques. You don't want to develop a technique where you're going like, you're pulling your fingers. There is one exception to that, and that's the yank, the Stevie Ray Vaughan yank. Where, let's say you're an A, right? And you're going like this. You're almost, you're still not using the vibrato with your finger, but you're pulling with your finger against the vibrato. Because you create this tension. First of all, you yank the note up, right? You don't bend this way. You pull it down this way, right? And then you let it off. And while you're letting it off, you're putting vibrato on it. So you go like this. And you're not really using your finger like this, but you're putting more pressure on your finger than you normally would to get this technique. You know, it's a real, and you also kind of want to overbend it. You don't really want to hit the note that you're going for. You want to go past it and bring it down. That's a Stevie technique and a blues technique too. So basically, in summary, the B.B. King and Stevie Ray Vaughan is with the knuckle up against the guitar, pivoting right here, back and forth with the wrist. And the Eric Clapton is you drop your hand and you put more pressure on your finger and you kind of pull down with your hand in this position. So that's the that's a good start to a vibrato technique. And if you really practice these techniques, you can get a really neat sound. But like I said, hold on a second. The most important thing is to not use it. The most important thing is to not use it, okay? And use it when it's really appropriate, and you'll find out that it really pops out a lot more when you're not overusing it. The technique itself pops out more because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, he just did something, you know, and it can keep a listener interested, can give a different feel to, you know, a certain section of your solos. So number one is you don't want to overuse vibrato. And then I just showed you a whole bunch of techniques that you can use to get a good sounding vibrato on your guitar.